Good morning, everyone. Let's continue. Today, we're gonna talk about a movement that took place during those days, revolution after the um, industrial revolution, the independence, all these things. During those days, each country developed a feeling for their own country, and they call it nationalism. And this brought another term called colonialism and colonial empires. There were a lot of countries who tried to conquer different areas here in the world. For instance, Great, Great Britain, they tried to control or they colonized India, some area of Canada, and China. I think they tried to colonize another place like that. With attention, survive. With attention. So here we're gonna talk about those movements that take place during those days. We're gonna present this this chapter in two sessions. Today is gonna start the first session, and then next week you're gonna have your first test evaluation, and then the second day is gonna be the other part of this chapter. Okay, so it's gonna take like 2 weeks this chapter because of the test that we have next week. Okay, so we're gonna take 1 day to complete this chapter and the other for the test. So let's begin, guys. So the term is nationalism, guys. Nationalismo. That's a term that was very popular during those days. Oh my God, let me see who else is here. Sebastian and Justin. Okay, okay. Ready. Okay, it was a term that was developed during those days, and what it means is the devotion or loyalty to one country. Another term it was powerful in the 1800s. It fueled the independence movement in Latin America also, because you know all this movement came from Europe. As this new nation emerged, the map of Europe once again changed. Now over here, there's another alliance that talks about nationalism and colonial empire. Nationalism sparked independence movement in Europe and the unification of Italy and Germany. And we'll talk about this movement and this unification that took place in those areas of the world, Italy and Germany. Nationalism is devotion to loyal. Well, it's the same thing that we just mentioned. Let's move on. Now, in the early 1800s, many people conquered by Napoleon resented French domination. They wanted to unite with others who share their language, belief, and customs. So the same custom. So that's why Italy tried to unify with other areas in the same country. Well, because Italy during those days it was separated. It was split. They split. Italy was. It belongs to a different kingdoms, and then we'll see it, like you see over here in this PowerPoint. Italy was formed with different areas. It was divided with different areas that belongs to a different kingdoms. Okay, nationalism supported the idea of independent nation states. So these areas over here, they were national states. They were like United States. There are some states. Well, the same thing happened here in Europe, in this area of Europe, in Italy and Germany. Well, it was divided in states. This one state, this another state, so different states. And eventually they reunite and become one country. Okay, it was Italy. Okay, like it says, national states, self-government countries made up people with common cultural background. Now, the unification of Italy. So in the early 1800s, Italy was divided into separate states, like I just mentioned. Over here, these are the state where the kingdom of Sardine. Basically, it was Sardine and what was the other one? And Prussia. This one. All of these were different different states, and eventually all of them they got together with the Sardine, the kingdom of Sardine. Kingdom of Sardine. I think it was this one, the kingdom of Sardine, and they conquer the unification, and the other countries got together with them, with the Sardine, the kingdom of Sardine in 1858. Okay, so nationalism grew more and more in Italian, embraced the idea of unify as one country. When Camillo Cavour became prime minister of Sardine, that I just mentioned, the kingdom of Sardine, Cavour modernized Sardine's army and fought against Austrian from the north. Austrian, why? Because Austrian wanted to take over some areas on the north. The other Italian states united with Sardines in 1860. That year, Giuseppe Garibaldi overthrew the governor of Sicilia, and a few months later, Garibaldi and Cavour, the two of them, joined together, and in 1861, Italy became United Kingdom. 10 years later, Rome became the capital of Italy. Okay, now let's talk about the German unification. German is now the country that we know as German is in this area, but they conquered this other area, and everything began with the Prussia. Prussia was the one who was organizing all this unification. Prussia was in this area, okay? Like it says over here in this picture. Let's move on. Now, a spirit of nationalism grew among German people. Prussia was the largest of the German states. Let's go back. Okay, Prussia was in this area. This area was Prussia. This area was Prussia. Like it says, Kingdom of Prussia. It was the biggest states. Prussia was the largest of the German states. Austria was its closest rival. In the 1860s, Prime Minister Otto von Bismarck began a plan to create a unified Germany under Prussia domination, build a strong army, and won the same. They did the same strategy that Italy did. They organized their army and then start doing all this unification. Okay, build a strong army and won wars against Denmark and Austria. They were their enemies. German Empire was proclaimed in January 1871. King Wilhelm of Prussia became emperor, ruling over all German states except Austria. Realmente Austria no lo lograron conquistar. Okay, let's stop right here and let's watch a video that talks about this. We just watched. We just talk about the unification of Italy and unification of Germany. Let's begin with Italian unification, guys, okay? Let's watch it.
Since the fall of Rome, the Italian peninsula was divided among a lot of independent states. Besides the rough geographic position, there was some debate as to whether they really shared a similar culture. Nevertheless, there were no real calls for unification. That is, until Napoleon came along. When he invaded Italy, he created the Kingdom of Italy in the north, harking back to the old constituent kingdom of the Holy Roman Empire. However, when he was defeated, Italy reverted back to independent state. Simply put, there was the ultra-conservative Bourbon-controlled Kingdom of Naples in the south, the theocratic Papal States in the centre, the Austrian Empire directly controlled the northeast and had client states in the centre, Parma, Tuscany and Modena, so the only genuinely independent state was the Kingdom of Sardinia, aka Piedmont, in the northwest. And that's how it was until the revolutions of 1848 swept across Europe. In Milan and Venice, revolutionaries rose up against the Austrians, Sicilians fought for independence from Naples, and in Rome they declared a republic. The Roman Republic was led by Giuseppe Mazzini, who founded a revolutionary group, the Young Italians, and had been launching insurrections for years. However, within a short space of time, the rebellions had been crushed. Austrians reconquered the northeast, the Bourbon Neapolitans crushed the Sicilians, and French troops were sent into Rome to reinstate the Pope, and they remained in the city for some time. This, the First Italian War of Independence, therefore failed, but it demonstrated that the new King of Sardinia, Victor Emmanuel II, would lead the unification movement, but he desperately needed a powerful ally. So in the 1850s, with his Prime Minister Cavour, Victor Emmanuel decided to send troops to Crimea to fight the Russians alongside the British and French in hopes of gaining an ally. Eventually, Napoleon III came to their aid. Besides looking to improve his prestige and weakening the Austrian Empire, he had nearly been killed by an Italian revolutionary in 1858, so he hoped to curb this activity. The Franco-Piedmont alliance against Austria was cemented when Victor Emmanuel offered to cede Nice and Savoy to France in exchange for their support. They attacked Austria in April 1858, starting the Second War of Italian Independence. Together with the Central Italian states who had united and ousted their leaders, they emerged victorious against the Austrians within just a few months. However, Victor Emmanuel and Cavour were angered with the French for making peace with the Austrians before they got all they wanted. Nevertheless, Lombardy was annexed, and the Central States then voted suspiciously overwhelmingly in favour of joining Piedmont. Shortly afterwards, the Sicilian revolutionary Francesco Crispi persuaded Giuseppe Garibaldi to launch an invasion of Sicily. Garibaldi was a famed revolutionary who had fought around the world, so he was able to recruit 1,000 volunteers, the Red Shirts, and gain limited support from the British. He set sail for Sicily in mid-1860, and once he landed, with the help of some local recruits, fought his way north. He eventually entered Naples in September, welcomed by crowds, and hoped to push on to Rome. However, Victor Emmanuel, who had just defeated Papal states and annexed Umbria, prevented him from doing so because French troops were still stationed in the city. So Garibaldi handed over his southern conquests to Victor Emmanuel, and the Kingdom of Italy was proclaimed in 1861. But they still lacked two notable cities, Venice and Rome. Fortunately for the Italians, Bismarck of Prussia was leading German unification. In 1866, he declared war on Austria in order to become the greater German power. Italy joined in the war against Austria, but their disjointed army was soon defeated. Meanwhile, the Austrians had sought to keep the French neutral, so to make sure of this, they agreed to give them Venice, and this in turn was handed over to Italy. But the Italians would have to wait until 1870 to capture Rome. The Prussians, still trying to unify Germany, declared war on France, starting the Franco-Prussian War. Their speedy gains forced the French to withdraw their troops garrisoned in Rome, finally allowing the Italians to move in. Rome was then declared the capital of the Kingdom of Italy, but the new nation faced a lot of problems. Only a very small number of the population spoke the standardized language, the north and the south were economically and culturally very different, brigands in the south attacked northerners, and after land reforms, millions of people emigrated. On the global scene, Italy would go on to create its own empire, but along with Germany, they greatly upset the balance of power in Europe, and the alliances created as a result of this would help start World War I.
Okay, now let's watch the other one about the German unification.
Okay, today we're going to be talking about the unification of Germany. So let's look at the big ideas. The first one is explain the rise of the nation states in Germany. The second is explain how Bismarck unified Germany. And the third is identify the causes and consequences of major political revolutions. So first thing we need to know about Germany is that at this time there's really no Germany. What we have are German-speaking people live in these very small and sometimes medium-sized states. They're kind of separated. They each govern themselves, they run themselves, but all the people, for the most part in them, speak German. Along with those states, there's also Prussia, which is the biggest of them, and parts of Austria as well. Between 1806 and 1812, Napoleon, as we've talked about, annexes, meaning he takes, lands along the Rhine River. The Rhine is a river in the west of Germany, and basically dissolves the Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire at this time really was the combination of all those German states. And what happens in 1815 at the Congress of Vienna is the German Confederation, shown here, is created. So as you can see, these are all the little German states. We have small, and then you have Prussia, which is by far the biggest of the German states. Fast forward about 50 years, and in 1862, King William I, he's the king of Prussia, makes this man here, Otto von Bismarck, the Prime Minister of Prussia. And Bismarck is going to give a speech in which he declares Prussia needs to build up its forces based on blood and iron, essentially warfare and industrializing the country. And so his first move is to build up the Prussian army. Only problem is the legislature in Prussia won't pay for this, so he uses money that was supposed to go to other places to build up the Prussian army. And he wants to pursue what we would call an aggressive foreign policy, meaning he is going to start a few wars in order to expand the German Empire. These wars are going to be with Denmark first, then Austria, and then France. So, in 1864, Austria and Prussia actually kind of become allies, and they're going to go to war with Denmark and seize the provinces of Schleswig and Holstein, which are located just north of Germany. And it's a very brief war, and Schleswig and Holstein are liberated, as they would say, by Austrian Germany. Austria would control Holstein, and Prussia would control Schleswig. But this is only the start. What happens is a few years later, Bismarck is going to invent some kind of excuse to invade Austria. The war only lasts 7 weeks, and the Austrians are defeated by the Prussians. So he used the Prussians to help him take provinces, then he turns against them. The next thing that's going to happen is in 1870, a rivalry has grown between Prussia and France, in part because Napoleon III, who's in charge of France at the time, is angered by Prussia taking or beating Austria. And there's also the sentiments that go all the way back to Napoleon in the early 1800s, when Napoleon had marched in through Germany, taken German lands, occupied German lands. So the Germans still remember that. And so what happens is the Franco-Prussian War ensues. And really, Prussia is just too strong. Not only are they too strong, but they're also supported by armies from some of the other smaller German states. And along with that, France is just poorly organized. They don't have enough supplies for their troops, and is really humiliated in defeat by the Prussians. So what we are left with is, after the defeat of France, princes from some of the southern and northern German states urge William to take the title of Kaiser, or Emperor. And really, in January of 1871, the German Empire is founded. And the leader of the German Empire now is the Kaiser, Kaiser William, or Wilhelm, as you'll hear him called. And from there, Otto von Bismarck writes a new constitution, or leads the writing of a new constitution, and along with the Kaiser himself as prime minister, there are also a two-house legislature that's created. The upper house is the Bundesrat, and the leaders of the Bundesrat are appointed by the people in the Bundesrat are appointed by the leaders of the German states. The other part of the legislature is the Reichstag, and people elected to the Reichstag are chosen by voting males in the German Empire. So by 1871, Bismarck had united Germany, had united the German states, and Prussia was kind of leading the way here. And you can see here pictured the extent of the German Empire at this time. So, review the big ideas really quickly. Explain the rise of nation states in Germany. Explain how Bismarck unified Germany. And identify the causes and consequences of major political revolutions.
Very well, guys. We're gonna stop it here. If this machine let me stop here, because it doesn't work right now. It's not working with me. Come on, come on. Oh my God. Come on, machine. It doesn't matter. I use this way. Okay, hello guys. So Remember, guys, next week we're gonna have the test number 1. It's gonna be on Monday, and then on Tuesday, we're gonna conclude this chapter about nationalism and colonial empires. Remember to complete vocabulary and also complete the assessment questions. Are we clear? Do you have any question? Yes, shoot. No question. Okay, I thought you had a question, Alicia. Do you have any trouble yesterday with the forum? No problem. Okay, excellent. Okay, mi apostle, do you have any problem, mi apostle? No problem. Okay, okay. Okay, guys, if you don't have anything else to solve any question, then next week, remember on Monday, test number 1. Okay, have a nice week. Bye-bye. Take care.
Saludos por aquí. No las había
Okay.
saludado.
See you. Chasing.
Nos
Bye-bye.
vemos. Gracias.
Bye.